I think we're involved in a very delicate balancing act taking place that's designed to do a couple things. Preserve Benjamin Netanyahu's political viability as the Israeli prime minister and prevent a broader regional conflict. What makes this difficult is that in order for Benjamin Netanyahu to retain viability, he has to be seen as A, being a wartime leader, and B, pursuing policies designed to win wars, not acknowledge defeat. The Americans who are pushing for a ceasefire are pushing for an outcome, a ceasefire, that would be the political ruin of Benjamin Netanyahu. So to offset the political consequences of accepting a ceasefire, which I believe eventually Israel will have to do, Netanyahu is engaged in very dangerous provocations regionally that promote him as an aggressive defender of Israeli security. This is why he carried out the assassinations in Beirut and in Tehran. And this is why Israel continues to carry out aggressive bombing attacks in Lebanon, Syria, and elsewhere. This allows Netanyahu to say that I have not surrendered, I am defending Israel's national security, but doing it in a way that doesn't automatically provoke Hezbollah or Iranian response. I mean, I think most people believe that there will be a Hezbollah or Iranian response, but the fact that it's taken this long implies that both Hezbollah and Iran are weighing the risks associated with such a response and maybe seeking to mitigate the scope and scale of this response in a way that enables them to resolve domestic political criticism that they've allowed Israel to get away with literal murder without provoking Israel to carry out an even larger counterstrike. So it's a very, very delicate game being played that involves domestic Israeli politics, domestic American politics, domestic Iranian politics, domestic Lebanese politics, and good old-fashioned geopolitical posturing.
The question is, Scott, when he says that we are ready to defend Israel, but at the end of the day, what's mattered the most is how they are trying to convince Netanyahu to go after some sort of ceasefire, because that would be the most important solution for this conflict in Gaza, not Iran and Israel, because it's a production of this conflict.
First of all, we have to understand that when the United States says that, or when the Biden administration says that America will defend Israel, they mean just that, defend Israel. That does not mean that America will participate in Israeli offensive actions against either Hezbollah or Iran. And I think that's one of the unspoken realities of this situation that the United States is communicating directly to Benjamin Netanyahu and Israel, that the U.S. will be there if Iran chooses to attack Israel, to retaliate for the Israeli assassination that took place in Tehran. But that if Israel chooses to extend its operations into Iran to launch a major counterstrike, that the United States will not participate, that Israel will be very much on its own, that Israel has put itself in this situation and the United States isn't going to get it out of it, that we will defend Israel, but we won't participate in any offensive action. And I think this is a big card that's being played because, to throw out an example here, right after the assassination, Russia flew in many flights of advanced surface-to-air missiles, S-400s, electronic warfare equipment, radars, etc., that have significantly upgraded Iran's defensive capabilities. This changes everything about the Israeli attack profile. Whatever attack plan that Israel had to strike Iran now has to be significantly modified to take into account these new weapon systems. And Israel may in fact not have the capacity to launch meaningful attacks that can defeat this new enhanced defensive posture of Iran. And so the combination of the United States saying, we're not going to help you out to attack Iran, and Iran upgrading its defense has hampered Israel's response potential, limited their options. And so this is something that all parties are taking into account, to include, I believe, Iran, which will seek to strike Israel. Iran must, but will do so in a way that doesn't create an imperative that Israel must respond meaningfully, that hopefully that this thing can go away, just like what happened in April when Israel attacked the Iranian consulate in Damascus. Iran responded, and then Israel did a token retaliation, and that was the end of it. I think all parties are hopeful that that can be the outcome of this current crisis.
And how do you see the mind of Netanyahu and his administration right now? But it seems you say that the United States is saying that we are not going to be part of any sort of attack on Iran. But in the mind of Netanyahu and his administration, it doesn't seem to be like that. They're thinking that if something big happens, the United States will be part of that operation. That's why they're not trying to negotiate, despite everything coming from them. I don't know if you accept that Antony Blinken is doing his best to convince Netanyahu or not, but at the end of the day, one of the main reasons that they're not considering any sort of ceasefire because they're thinking that if something happens between Iran and Israel, the United States would be part of this.
I don't know how Israel can believe that. I believe that Israel was set straight when Netanyahu visited the United States. He got his massive, rounds of standing ovations, 54 or something of that nature, in Congress. But then he had to go and be briefed on reality by the Pentagon and by the White House, where I believe both the Pentagon and the White House put him on notice that America will defend but will not participate in offensive actions. And I think this is what prompted Netanyahu to authorize the assassinations, because he had to do something. He stood before Congress and promised massive strikes against Hezbollah, massive strikes against Iran. But when he was told that this was impossible because the United States wouldn't respond, he didn't back away. He simply refocused his efforts, carried out these assassinations, which were terribly provocative, terribly provocative. The United States could not have been happy with this, but it allowed Netanyahu to posture and say, I am the national security prime minister. I am the leader of Israel that's capable of carrying out these decisive strikes. I have sent a signal to Hezbollah, Hamas, and Iran that Israel will not be trifled with. So he gained, some political ammunition domestically by doing that. And that, when combined with the fact that the United States Congress anointed him as the ultimate Israeli leader that America relies upon, I think positions him to be able to consider to enter into negotiations about a ceasefire. But Netanyahu is not just going to roll over. He is looking to maximize his political viability. He has to be careful, because if he accepts a ceasefire that is seen as surrender by his coalition, then his coalition collapses and he may not stay on as prime minister, even though he has the American flag wrapped around his shoulder. So he is going to continue to play this very dangerous game of escalation management, up until which time either he gets a deal that's acceptable or he reaches the end. And the danger here is that if he pushes it too far, then you get an Iranian retaliation, then you get a Hezbollah retaliation, then you get a regional war, and that's an option that nobody wants.
And as you mentioned, do you think that part of this is a strategy on Iranian strategy toward considering the response that they're going to have? Do you think that because of the way that they're thinking that these negotiations that are going on between the United States and Israelis in order to have a political settlement, do you think Iran is still hoping that it's going to have something coming out of these negotiations, or that's why they're just not attacking Israel right now. They didn't respond so far. And because everybody's asking why Iran is taking too much time to respond.
Well, what are Iran's strategic objectives here? To be seen as a nation capable of responding to Israel militarily? They've already proven that. Iran is a nation that has a strategic objective not of defining its role in the Middle East through military supremacy. Iran's military power is meant to be a deterrence against outside aggression against Iran. Iran wants to be a geopolitical player that focuses more on its economic potential and its ability to leverage this economic potential into, regional, not dominance, but to be a player regionally. And the region we're talking about is not just the Middle East, but Eurasia. Iran is focused on BRICS, joining BRICS, preparing for BRICS. Iran is focused on the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Iran is focused on a European Economic Union. Iran is focused on everything but war. It doesn't want a war. It's not seeking a war. You remember, Iran didn't ask for this crisis. This crisis was brought on Iran by Israel that opted to carry out an assassination in Tehran. And so now the question for Iran is, do we, go with our emotions and bomb and throw away all this potential we have of economic revitalization, geopolitical relevance, or are we patient? And do we play this thing out, managing escalation so as not to create a regional conflict that undoes decades of work that Iran has been involved in trying to position itself to be right where it is, a nation on the cusp of geopolitical relevance, re-emerging into the family of nations as a major player. This is a role that Iran believes it deserves, it warrants, but it hasn't been able to achieve because of decades of sanctions and isolation. They now have the potential to break out of this. Do they really want to be dragged back down into the morass simply because people say we have to bomb Israel? I think Iran's playing this very smart. And I say the same thing for Hezbollah. Hezbollah is no longer just a resistance movement. It is a political party that plays a very important role in Lebanon. And Hezbollah has, invested a lot of political capital into getting to this position where the Lebanese people trust Hezbollah to do that which is right, not just for the Shia, not just for Hezbollah, but for Lebanon as a whole. So it's not in Hezbollah's interest to engage in a major confrontation with Israel that would drag Lebanon into this conflict and do tremendous harm on Lebanon at a time when Lebanon simply can't afford to have harm done to it. So again, Hassan Nasrallah is showing his maturity as a leader, a Lebanese leader who has, regional geopolitics on the mind by not, drastically escalating in response to Israel's provocation of the assassination in Beirut.
Can we say that this attack, this problem that you're witnessing between Gazans and Israel is unifying all of the parties? Because the news shows that it seems that in Lebanon, the situation, the position of Hezbollah is getting better and better. They were not in the same position before this conflict started between Israel and Gazans.
Could you say that one more time, please?
The position of Hezbollah right now in Lebanon, because you look at Sunni, Shia, and all these parties within Lebanon, it seems all of them are supporting Hezbollah right now, which wasn't the case before this conflict started.
Well, this is what I was saying, that Hezbollah has emerged as a political power in Lebanon, not just the representative of Hezbollah interests, but somebody who represents the interests of all of Lebanon. And I think the maturity of Hassan Nasrallah in approaching this issue, focusing on what is best for promoting Palestinian interests, which ultimately mean promoting the creation of a Palestinian state without destroying Lebanon in the process. I think the Lebanese people recognize that, the role he has played, the role that Hezbollah has played has been a very positive one for Lebanon and the region. And this is why you see Christians, Sunni, even Shia factions, Druze rallying